So let's have a look at the gradient mesh tool in Adobe Illustrator. There's a couple of ways we can apply this. Firstly, it's just to any fill that we have within Adobe Illustrator. So let's look at this in a more simple way. I'm just going to create a basic shape. Let's go along and put on a nice ellipse here and say fill that with a colour. So I can come across here to my toolbar. Near the bottom here I've got the mesh tool, so I'm just going to select the mesh tool and essentially just click on the fill of the area I've just made. So what we now have is, if I go to my direct selection tool, which we use a lot with the mesh tool, I can click and sort of move that around. It's basically an anchor point, but it's not there to control the shape of the path, it's there purely for colour. So it's not doing anything at the moment, so let's just highlight that anchor, click on a new colour, and you can see I've got a colour running off that mesh point. And I can keep adding mesh points to various areas of the fill, keep using my direct selection tool to click and change those colours. Okay, so let's have a look at a more advanced way. Basically we can convert things to gradient meshes. So I'm going to look at recreating an image here and turning it into a vector. So I'm going to place an image in, so let's file and down to place, and let's just find my images, which I didn't have to hand. Okay, so let's go to gradient mesh. Let's have a go at drawing a piece of fruit here, like this green pepper that I'm going to draw. So there's a couple of things I want to do first. First of all, I actually want to select some of the colour from this image to use for my vector. Okay, so let's do that. Let's grab my colour panel. I'll just show the options on that, and I will also just grab my swatches panel to save some colours into it. So by using these two panels, I'm going to come across to my little eyedropper that I've got over here, choose that, and I'm just going to sort of click around the image in different areas. So there's like a green area there, just drop that colour into my swatches. From my colour there I can drop it straight into my swatch. So let's have some darker areas, some more white type areas that I've got here. So let's just grab a few colours. We can do this afterwards as well once the vector is created, but I just want to grab a couple to get started. And also, those of you who have never used a colour group before, very useful in Illustrator. I'm going to press my shift key and just select all those colours that I've made. I'm going to come down here to the bottom of my swatches panel, click on the new colour group, and let's call this greens, and create from selected swatches there. So click OK, and it just puts them in a neat little group, a little folder at the bottom there for me to use. Okay, so let's close my colour. I don't need that anymore, and let's just pull my swatches across. Okay, so first of all I'm going to grab my pen tool, and with my pen tool I'm going to just have the fill set to nothing, and I'm just going to have a very thin stroke here. So basically I'm just going to grab an outline of this shape. Now if you haven't used pen tool before, I have done a few tutorials on this one, so it's something you need to practice with to get to grips with, but it's really useful. It's the best tool really in Illustrator when we look at trying to recreate any kind of vectors. So coming around my outside here, just clicking and dragging to make these curved anchor points around. I'm going to draw the stalks separately, so let's just come around and finish that off there. So I've got my pepper and I've got a rough outline of it here. So all this can change. If I'm not too happy with the outline for whatever reason, even after I've done the mesh, I can still tweak the anchor points around a little bit. So let's choose the pepper. I'll go to my fill colour, and I'm just going to choose one of those greens as a base colour. I'm going to turn off the stroke now because I don't want any stroke on this pepper at all. So instead of using my actual gradient mesh tool from my toolbar, I'm going to select the shape, I'm going to go to Object and down to Create Gradient Mesh here. Now I can basically put in rows and columns to carry this gradient mesh. So the more rows and columns I put in, the more control I will have over the colour on this fill. Now I can add in more with the actual mesh tool afterwards, but I do want to have a bit of a starting one. So let's say put 8 rows and 8 columns, flat appearance, and just click OK. So you can see now I've got a mesh that it's made automatically for me on this image. So now I'm going to go to my direct selection tool, just deselect, roll over the image and sort of use my other image as reference. Let's click on a few of these anchor points, click on some of the darker colour there. Let's so have a nice darker side to this pepper here. And to be honest, at this stage this is somewhere you can really sort of get involved in this image and spend a lot of time making this. Let's put a little lighter area there, and then we come down to another darker area here. So you can see just by building up these little mesh points, clicking on them, choosing different colours, you can see already there I'm starting to get a nice sort of 3D effect on this here. So let's come round, keep working around here. Okay, so I'm just going to do a few more just to give you the idea, but obviously this could take you hours really. You could spend as much time as you wanted going around adding in more mesh points around the edge and the side here. So you can see there, using the gradient mesh converting to a mesh, I can start to get a more accurate sort of photorealistic image of this pepper.